Hi, David. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, one hand on the trophy. What factors do you attribute to the success of African Stars in clinching the championship title?
Yeah, David, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think, firstly, it's a real honor and privilege to be in the role that I find myself in, to be leading this great club. We take this responsibility with a lot of humility. But remember that African Stars is a pedigree of being a club that has won trophies over the years. And with that in mind, there's a lot that rests on the responsibility that we currently have in terms of driving the club strategic vision. Uh, in terms of your question, I think firstly we also have to acknowledge the role that the opponents play in terms of how far Ongos and Commerce Nampol pushed us in terms of the championship title. I think fair play to them. Secondly, I think that the club is really growing. You must remember that we won the title last season. I think what 72 points, which was quite a big point haul in the history of Namibian football. We went almost unbeaten. So when you come back from that sort of season, it automatically puts you as favorites for the following season. So I think that we went through a period of some level of uncertainty and some level of turbulent times. But remember that football, or rather life itself, is not linear. And that's why one has to go through those sort of speed bumps that slow you down from time to time. Now, if you look at how the league was won to where we are today, remember that I think the initial Coach Coffee,
Yes.
had a point haul of around 20 points over a period of 9 matches, right? Coach Bakera, I think, had a point haul of 20 points over a period of 11 games.
Yeah.
10 games, rather, sorry. And then Coach Ronnie currently now stands on 21 points from 11 games.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is that we went through different cycles to get to where we are. And I think we went through a lot of pain during this particular season. And if you compare how many goals we scored and how many goals we conceded the previous season to this season, I think we conceded a bit more than last season.
Yes.
Yeah. But I also think that we also scored more than last season in terms of the number of goals. So there's always a price that you need to pay for being overly defensive or being on the front foot. So it's a balance that you need to keep, and I think that has helped us greatly. We have also seen the emergence of the young talent that has come through. I think Harold Gassep, his breakout season, especially towards the second half and under the tutelage of Ronnie Canavelo. We've also seen Paulus breakthrough, and these players are going to become monsters in the new season. Mark my words on it. You would also know that there were certain games that really were determining factor, in my view, in terms of what the success was. I think the away game in Oshakati against Chuna was really a statement that we needed to make to go out there and get the 3 points, because at the time, I think they were very tight at the top.
Yeah.
And I think
we were third at the time.
At the time,
yes.
and we needed to make sure that we collect the maximum points, which we did, and obviously I think the two teams that were sort of ahead of us at that point played earlier, and they didn't collect the points, so we had to then do our part, which we did. There was also the game against Ukakaraba Young Warriors. Remember that prior to that game, we had not won a game where we were trailing. Right? Remember that we were always ahead, and somehow it was extremely difficult for us to come back after we conceded or we were trailing. So again, that was it was almost what you can refer to as a new era with a new coach, where we are able to come back even after conceding. And this is where a player like Harold Carset and a player like Paulus really came to the fore. I think prior to that, we also had a game against Tigers, where again, after the whole week leading up to that game, I think we played against Civics the Friday night, and we drew 0-0. And then the Sunday, I think we played Tigers, and again Harold and Paulus exerted themselves quite well. So I think the young people that really broke through in the second half of the season and under the coach Ronnie's tutelage, I think they were a big part to what we achieved this season. Obviously, you cannot undermine the role that Wetu played in terms of his contribution. Remember that the first leg, they were almost unplayable on the first round between him and Willow. In terms of the combination that they had, and also the number of assists and goals that then obviously turned into the end product. Also, I think seeing Lukaku come back after he was away as the goalkeeper, I think it also played a role in terms of really the assurance that you needed. Because remember that we went through a process where there was some level of uncertainty. But if you've got D0 obviously being the number one goalkeeper, and then he's got Lukaku who's pushing him all the way, there's some level of assurance really to know that, and obviously also the young goalkeeper Tashimune, who I think will come through as well in the upcoming season. So and then obviously I think the most other important factor was really the Okaferando folklore, in terms of how they really stood by the team.
And the 12 men.
Yes, the 12 men. But also, you see, the biggest challenge that we have is really to convince people of things they cannot see. And for me, at African Stars, that has been one of our challenges. But one of the things that the Okaferando folklore has done is really stood by management in some of the difficult decisions that we have taken. And that goes way back, even when we were embroiled in football battles, where the African Stars folklore never second-guessed where management was. Remember, the reorganization of the technical team as we know it now also led to a lot of outcry. But generally, the sentiment from the folklore was that it is the right decision. And we always say that you can only connect the dots backwards, but I think in hindsight now, it was the correct decision to bring in Coach Ronnie Kanalela. So I think it's really a combination of factors, and also the pedigree of the club to really want to remain at the top. I think in the past 6 years, this was someone else telling me this, in the past 6 years that football was played in Namibia, 4 of those titles have been won by African Stars. So it goes to tell you the level of competitiveness that the team brings, and how far we are to go in really exerting ourselves now onto the continent.
What plans does the club have to maintain their winning momentum and continue to excel in future competitions such as the Champions League?
Well, I think that, now that last year, November, I was elected as part of the Africa Clubs Association board.
Yes. In Egypt.
In Egypt. Yeah. Now, you know that we are now at the pinnacle of club football. We had the privilege to be at the table now, to be able to speak to other clubs that have walked the journey. So another reason why it was so important for us to really be in the running, but at the same time also go back to Africa, is really because of what we wanted to bring to the table as a club that want to break through the top tier. So we have to constantly participate at the CAF level. In terms of what the plans are, we are very busy with the recruitment drive. We are busy in terms of where the needs are. Obviously, if you think about the second half, I think it was really a strong Namibian core that we had.
Yeah.
So we won the league really with a local talent, if it were.
Yeah.
Now, remember that the Brave Warriors is only as strong as a domestic league. We had 3 players that went to AFCON. So the first priority for us is obviously to recruit within the domestic market to see where the needs are in consultation with the technical team in terms of who the players that will strengthen, where the areas that we need the strengthening in. Thereafter, we would also then have to look at the special talent on the continent that potentially can buy or can see the vision of the project that we are building at African Stars.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely go to other, whether it's all in North Africa or on the continent, we'll go see what exactly one can get there. We'll also look in the sub-region, say within South Africa, Botswana and Zambia, who are the big talents that can come in and strengthen what we are trying to do as African Stars. So we will consistently continue to reinvent the club to the extent that we need to take the club to the next stage.
Yeah.
I was a guest at the recently last 8 CAF second leg between Yanga from Tanzania and Mamelodi Sundowns. And for you to be able to compete at that level, you really have to get the best. And there is a correlation between the success of domestic clubs and the success of the national team.
Yeah.
Remember that when Spain wins domestic football, that's a Barcelona core that they had. If you look at how far South Africa has come in terms of the recently concluded AFCON, there's a Sundowns core. The point I'm making is that there's a definite plan on our end to create a synergy between clubs and the national team. Because through that, we are bound to see success. This is why it's important for us, obviously, to look at the Namibian core, but at the same time, complement it with strong and talented players from the region. So we will definitely have a pre-season roadmap in terms of what we want to do for pre-season. Remember last year we had such a successful pre-season.
Yes, the tour of Botswana.
The tour of Botswana. And I think it could also have played a huge role on the mental aspect of the players, the fortitude that came through at the end to be able to withstand the pressure from the other clubs. So we definitely have a pre-season. We're speaking to clubs in the region, whether we'll have a pre-season here or whether we'll have a pre-season in Botswana or wherever, or what alignment can we have with other clubs that are also competing in Africa.
Yeah.
So that will be part of the preparations to really go back to Africa and make sure that we've got a team that can compete. So the recruitment will definitely entail both the domestic top talent and then the top talent in the region, especially to strengthen where the need is.
Okay. Just a follow-up. Last season's Champions League campaign was very costly to the club, which was partly due to having to travel to South Africa. Is there a hope that one of our stadiums would be eligible for at least the preliminary stages of the Champions League?
Yeah, as part of our program through the last dance, which obviously you would put out, or that has been put out already, we are gonna have a courtesy call to the SG, Mr. Charles Sioya. Now we're seeing him hopefully on Thursday to have a chat around some of the issues that you are raising then, because I mean, I think it makes sense. It's only logical to have some of these games being played here. It gives us a necessary advantage. It helps us to be able to compete for these teams. And we hope that that discussion, or that particular topic features on the discussion with him, so that he can actually get that off the ground, because whether it's the Dr. Happy Geingob Stadium or whether it's the Independence Stadium, for preliminary, I think we should be able to be putting the conversation forward, and put the conversation forward also very early, as opposed to what we did last year.
Yeah.
So we hope that can happen. In the event that we get through to the group stages, obviously the categories are different for teams, and that would mean that we would maybe have to consider playing in Botswana or playing in Zambia or playing in South Africa. But again, I think we have now learned from the mistakes of the past, and we hope that through that we will be able to come out better and stronger as we move forward.
Okay. Last question. We've seen some of the newer clubs coming in and getting sponsorships. Is the plan in the works for a sponsorship in order to develop the club further?
Absolutely. But you must also remember that we've got a very clear understanding of what the value inherent in the African Stars brand, right? So that's why we don't necessarily jump at the first chance of an opportunity to go into a partnership with a sponsor. Because, I mean, and there's also different mechanisms in terms of how clubs can be funded. And one of those is really the internal funding. And this is what we have worked on in terms of really wanting to strengthen the fundamentals from a funding structure perspective. So if you look at what we have done, we have, for instance, refused to go into agreements where the commercial value of African Stars is undermined. If you look at our social media platforms that we have now, if you look at the number of traffic that we have on those platforms, and how now we need to move to the next stage in terms of monetizing those platforms to be able to make sure that the internal funding structures are strengthened, is where we are going. We're more than happy to get into partnerships with corporates that have got an alignment with the product that we have. We're not into the game of handouts. We're also not into the game of freebies. That's why it's critical for us to really define the rules of engagement as African Stars when we are looking at partnerships and collaborations. We have gotten the club to a point where the intrinsic value of the club has really increased over time. And subsequently, you need to be able to optimize the value in a product to that extent, as opposed to going into a sponsorship or some donation grant and. So we are fully conscious that some models have left clubs in a much worse position they were in before. We want to move away from the strongman approach or the strongman methodology of funding of clubs, where you have David, who is in a privileged position and fortunate to be able to spend or give money to the club. And as soon as David is no longer in a position to do that, the club collapses. We want to be able to build a sustainable model that will be ground up, a sustainable model where the club is self-sustaining. We are looking at establishing branches for the new season. You will see that as soon as we bring the season to an end, we have a roadshow of really activating the supporters branches. We'll have layers of supporters chairpersons at the branch level. We'll have them at national level. And we would have different mechanisms of how the club can then be funded. You would also know that there's also going to be what we refer to as an investor base of the club. And through that, we'll do valuations. And those valuations would mean that the club would potentially be in a position to even at some point list, right? Where African Stars can go to their stock exchange, and you can have institutional investors understanding the value of the club. Because remember that on the back end, we've got what we now know as the social media and trying to monetize that. We've got the shirt sales that you see will grow. We've got some interesting announcements that are coming. We are also getting a new shirt for the new season. And you'll see that our sales on shirt have done really well. And so we've got short, medium, and long-term plans for the club in terms of funding. And this is why it's critical for us to really be in a position to bring it together when the new season starts and continue to make sure that we remain competitive, but at the same time also break through the top-tier cycle of African clubs. Because ultimately, through that, African Stars is now perhaps part of the top 50 clubs on the continent, and it's no small feat. And through that, you want to make sure that we remain there and make sure that the club grows in leaps and bounds.
Okay. Lastly, can you invite the Katarando faithful to the last dance against the Orlando Pirates?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we are really indebted to the Katarando folklore. They've been with us through thick and thin. You saw them again this past weekend, how they came up in their numbers, both on Friday night and on Saturday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, sorry. And this is the last dance, as you term it. They must please come out in their numbers. They must come turn the Independence Stadium in a sea of red. The celebration, it's been long in the works. Everyone thinks that the season is won on the final day or on the last game 29. I don't think so. I think it's really a process. And that process, they've been part of it. And I think it's now the cherry on top. We want them to come through. They must really, this is their moment. And really to come say thank you. We've got few other things planned. I'm getting calls whether there's going to be a bus parade or whatever. I think that you will announce in due course. But we hope that they come in huge numbers. They need to come fill the Independence Stadium as we close off the 2023-2024 football season in style.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Salomo.
Thank you for having me.
#Okaterano.